Philip, very good to see you. First off, Iran signalling a willingness to talk over its nuclear program. It's been saying that for a while now. Is this desperation, or is Tehran trying to buy more time? What's your thoughts about that?
Well, I rather suspect that in this case it's Iran trying to buy more time. I think Iran understands that essentially it's a non-starter to make these kinds of proposals. The Western powers basically have gone into the negotiations, insofar as there are negotiations, with a preconception that Iran is engaged in a secret program to develop a nuclear weapon. And with that preconception, obviously Iran has nowhere to go. So I think it's basically a question of buying time.
The US and the EU advocating an embargo on Iranian oil, as just mentioned there, but they consume, at the end of the day, barely any of it themselves, just a small percentage. So which countries will feel the squeeze if the ban comes into force?
Well, obviously Iran will feel the squeeze most strongly, assuming that it is possible to enforce what is being proposed, and that, of course, is by no means clear. Oil is a fungible commodity, and it can be sold anywhere. Iran needs the exports of the oil to finance its government, to finance its social programs. So Iran would be the big sufferer, and that's the intention, obviously, to make Iran suffer so that Iran will do something that is more transparent in regards to its nuclear program.
And if Iran did carry out that threat and block off the vital Hormuz Strait over the embargo, it's surely they're going to harm Europe, even if it's not using a lot of its oil. It is using a lot of oil that comes through that area. That's the whole point, from other Gulf states. What's that going to do to oil prices?
Well, if Iran even makes an attempt to block the Straits of Hormuz, oil prices will probably double or treble. The thing is that the real danger here is that it could produce a shooting war if the United States does follow through on its resolve to keep the straits open, which won't be that easy. And I think that it virtually guarantees that Iranian naval forces and U.S. naval forces would come into conflict.
There are lots of different opinions on how bad it would be if it did kick off. We've been hearing lots of experts over the last month or so. What do you think would happen as we head into 2012 if this did get out of hand? What's the worst case scenario?
Well, the worst case scenario is World War III, I'm afraid. The problem is that Iran is surrounded by a number of countries that are essentially hostile to it, and some of them are nuclear armed. And this is a perfect cauldron for starting something with a very minor, relatively minor incident that escalates and escalates and escalates and winds up as a major war. I
started this interview by saying, you know, I was wondering whether Iran was buying time. You thought it was buying time. The crucial question is buying time for what?
Well, you know, I think that in the world of politics, that things tend to shift, and certainly the resolve of the European powers to push on this Iranian nuclear issue is higher now. But if there is a genuine threat to possibly raise oil prices through closing the Straits of Hormuz, then the Europeans, who get quite a lot of this oil, would begin to reconsider what they are doing. So I think Iran is basically saying that, you know, things can change. And while there's a high level of belligerency right now, if we buy time, possibly that will change.
I know you've been following this story really closely. What are your thoughts about the killing of that Iranian scientist in Iran? It's just the latest killing. Tehran is, of course, blaming Israel and the US. Do you think a covert war is being waged there behind the scenes?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think a covert war is being waged by the United States and Israel. I think in this case, the actual killers of the scientists were probably Iranians that were recruited by Mossad or the CIA outside of Iran and then sent in to do the work. And I believe that the intelligence used to locate this man and to target him probably came from the United States, and probably it was intelligence that was shared with Israel.
Philip Giraldi, thanks ever so much for being on the programme, joining us live there from Washington, D.C. Thank you.